Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my summer horror movie series, July series. So today we're gonna kick this series off with a pretty well known franchise. We're gonna take a look at the a remake from this franchise, and that is the 2003 Texas the it is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I always just called it Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. This is a pretty well-known and well-liked remake of the original 1974 Tobe Hooper movie, which is actually the only one I've seen all the way through, at least, other than this one, of course, as I'm reviewing it. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003, starting with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll give you my thoughts and review as far as the movie goes. So, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a 2003 American slasher film directed by Marcus Nispel, who's the same director that did the Friday the 13th remake a few years later. Written by Scott Kozar. The plot follows a group of young adults traveling through rural Texas who encounter Leatherface and his murderous family. It is a remake of Tobe Hooper's 1974 film with the same name, and it's the fifth installment in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Several crew members of the original film were involved in the project. Hooper and Kim Henkel served as co-producers. Daniel Pearl returned as cinematographer, and John Larroquette reprised his voice narration for the opening intertitles. Excuse me. So that's the gist of it. So basically, it opens on August 18th, 1973. Five young adults, Aaron, her boyfriend Kemper, and their friends Morgan, Andy, and Pepper, are on their way to a Leonard Skinner concert after traveling to Mexico to purchase marijuana. While driving through Texas, the group picks up a distraught and severely traumatized hitchhiker they see walking in the middle of the road. After they try to talk with the hitchhiker, who speaks incoherently about a bad man, she pulls a loaded revolver from between her legs and shoots herself in the mouth. The group goes to a nearby gas station to contact the police, where a woman named Luda May tells them to meet Sheriff Hoyt at the Old Crawford Mill. Instead, they find a young boy named Jebediah, or not Jebediah, Jedediah, who tells them Hoyt is at home getting drunk. Aaron and Kemper go through the woods to find his house, leaving Morgan, Andy, and Pepper at the mill with Jedediah. They come across a plantation house, and Aaron is followed inside by an amputee named Monty to call for help. Kemper goes inside to look for Aaron and is killed by Thomas Hewitt, also known as Leatherface, who hits him with a sledgehammer, which sprays his blood on a nearby television. He then drags his body into the basement to make a new mask. As far as the cast goes, we have Jessica Biel as Aaron, Jonathan Tucker as Morgan, Erica Learshen as Pepper, Mike Vogel as Andy, Eric Balfour as Kemper, Andrew Bernardsky as Thomas Hewitt, and Arlie Ermy as Sheriff Hoyt. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for this 2003 remake, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. First, let me say this is a great summer horror movie. I mean, you can watch it any time of the year, but it really does fit this time of the year, which is why I definitely wanted to include it in my summer horror series here. But it definitely has a very hot, sweaty, dirty, outdoorsy kind of summer horror feel to it for sure. So it really fits the category there. Yeah, a lot of people think this is the best horror remake, or certainly one of the top three, and I would have to concur with them. Well, I don't like it quite as much as the original for reasons that I'll get into. That's just a personal thing for me. I do know there's a lot of people that actually do like it more than the remake, and I can sort of understand why. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I. Well, before I get into my pros and cons, I'll have to say I also did see this movie in theaters in 2003. I went with a friend of mine, and at that point, I'd only seen parts of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I really wasn't all the way familiar with any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, because this is almost 20 years ago. And as you know, I really didn't get into horror that much until the last 3 years. I mean, obviously, I'd seen horror movies before then, but as far as like making it a thing for me, So I had a really good and fun theater going experience watching this movie where everybody in the theater was pretty much white knuckling it. So yeah, it was. I have to say that it definitely has some nostalgia for me as well. Not that it really needs it as a positive, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. So as far as the pros of this movie, obviously it's a Michael Bay produced film, so you know it's going to look good. Michael Bay, if nothing else, tends to produce films that have really good cinematography and good camera shots and things like that. And this movie's no exception. It's a very well shot movie, great cinematography. I mean, there's some great framing shots, some great camera work, especially at nighttime with just lighting and shadow. Um, getting frame shots of the house, the Hewitt house. Yeah, very good looking movie to get through. And then on to the next note, or extending on to that, you also have Jessica Biel in the movie, which also makes it an easy movie to get through to watch. So, but besides that, there's really strong performances by the whole cast here, really. I have to say, I think it's probably the best acted, the best performances in any Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. That was the one thing about the first movie, really the only con that I could really come up with for the first movie, which I'll be reviewing that probably as part of my October series, FYI. But um, the acting in that one, other than like a couple of the main leads, is not all that great. You can tell it was much more lower budget. You didn't have a lot of big names in that movie. This movie's different. This is a big studio budget movie, and so we do have some names to recognize here. But that even just more than just the names, the performances are really good, especially by three people that really make this movie to me: Jessica Biel, Jonathan Tucker, and Arlie Ermy. Those are the three that really stand out. But really, the whole cast is good in this movie. But those three in particular really brought the weight of those characters to screen. You know, Arlie Ermey's character, I think he's the scariest character in the entire movie, even more so. Well, I'll say he's on par with Leatherface. Just his sadistic sense of humor and his creepy demeanor and everything, his look, his sound. He's got that voice, and he really brings it as you would expect with such a great actor like him. Rest in peace, Arlie Ermy. Jessica Biel, I haven't seen all the movies with her, but has to be her strongest performance in my opinion. It's not as easy as people think to pull off a horror movie final girl sort of main lead like this, and I think she does a really good job. Now I have some problems with what her character does, but as far as portraying the character, I think we believe her. I mean, when she's scared, we believe that she's scared. I mean, there's nothing mailed in there. I think she just gives a strong female lead performance, but also a believable. I'm scared out of my, to the point of pissing my pants kind of performance as well. And it's not as easy to do. And then Jonathan Tucker, he's the character I actually felt the worst for in this movie. He got the most shit. He was probably tortured the most. And I tell you, I almost got emotional watching him in the back of that van because with what Arlie Ermy was putting him through, because his lip was quivering. I mean, his performance is outstanding in this movie. So yeah, that's definitely an uptick over the original. Probably the only one that I'll give it as far as over the original, but that's a big one. So, and speaking of, I didn't mention the character of Leatherface, but speaking of Leatherface, Andrew Bernardsky. I'm probably not pronouncing that last name right, but who plays Thomas Hewitt, aka Leatherface. This is a great portrayal of Leatherface. I would argue maybe the best in terms of being bulky and scary. It's the best one that I've seen. Um, there's no high pitched screaming or squealing in with this Leatherface really, other than when he hurts himself. And even then, it's much more believable. But he's just such an intimidating presence. I mean, Andrew Bernardsky's was a big hulking guy to begin with, but he just has a hulking presence in this movie, and it's also much more of a dark, serious Leatherface. You don't have the transvestite or the even in the first movie. He wasn't as big and not quite as serious. There's a little bit more dark humor there. I felt like, but this guy's not fucking around. Basically, I mean, pretty much he would scare anybody if he was chasing after him in real life. Yeah, just a very effective Leatherface, and Andrew Bernardsky does a great job of portraying him. He's unrelenting in his pursuits of all these characters. Also, the pacing of this movie is really good. Once the shit hits the fan, basically, once the girl is on the side of the road and they almost hit her, from that point all the way to the end, you have a little bit of light, levity or light moment at the beginning when you're introduced to the characters in the vans talking about marijuana and this concert that they're going to and stuff. But after that, as soon as they pick up this hitchhiker and she blows a hole through her face, the film is pretty much wall to wall intense thrills and chills, and it doesn't let up. There's really no filler or boring parts to the movie. And it really doesn't allow the audience to take a breath until the ending credits. And because of those things, it really makes for an effective horror movie. That's what you want, in my opinion, when you're going to a horror movie. I really like the setting of the house as well. I think the house looks great. I dare say even better than in the original. Okay, I guess I give it that over the original too, as well as the performances. But the whole production design of this movie, again, a Michael Bay produced movie, higher budget, so I don't want to give it too much more credit over the original because you're talking about a much different budget there. But it was really effective for this movie. Just great production design throughout the town and the house and the outdoors and just everything. It also has a really solid score that really adds to the tension and the suspense in this movie. Very effective, really good, mostly, and they're mostly practical effects, especially as it relates to blood and gore and kills. Very effective practical effects, and I'm glad you love to see it. You love to see less CGI and more practical effects, especially in 2003 when I think CGI might not have been as prevalent or as at their fingertips as it is today, but it was there, I believe, and they didn't go that route, which I really appreciate. Um, it's a really well directed movie. I feel like they did a great job. Um, Marcus Nispel and the producers did a great job of taking the concept or some of the aspects of the original movie in terms of the characters and the overall premise, but they made it their own movie, man, and that's what I appreciate the most. Because especially after just coming off the last remake that I watched, which was the 1998 Gus Van Sant Psycho remake, which is no remake at all, other than the fact that it's in color. I'm not going to get into that, but that's a horrible remake. Part of the reason this remake is so effective is because they do their own thing with the material, and they make it their own movie and they have their own vision for it, and they utilize it to the utmost, in my opinion. So yeah, just a lot of great things about this movie that makes for a really fun and entertaining and white knuckling kind of experience. I do have a few cons with it. One of my biggest ones is there's a dinner scene in the original that's not in this movie, and I think there's a reason for it that I'll get into with another con, which is more of a personal one that I have. But missing the dinner scene, I thought was a huge disappointment. I kept looking for it until I realized they were past that point where they were going to bring it out, so I didn't like that. Um, it doesn't have the grainy, dirty realism of the original. Now, part of that was just that was a case where low budget actually benefited that first original movie because it almost looks like snuff films. It almost looks like you're just watching people that was shooting this on a video camera, like somebody was standing behind the wall or something in that first movie. This movie obviously doesn't look like that. It's all shiny and new, like a new penny, because it's a Michael Bay produced movie. It's a post 2000s movie with great cinematography and everything. But to me, I think the original it felt more disturbing and more scary because of those. I would say more disturbing than scary. This movie is scary. It's effectively scary for what it is, but that first movie was scary and more disturbing because of the fact that it looked very grainy and dirty and like it was a real snuff film. This movie does have the typical horror movie slasher character cliches, making bad decisions that lead to their own deaths, running and stopping for whatever fucking reason. It's just it kind of gets on you after a while when you're trying to root for these characters and you're like, well, then just go ahead and die. You're trying to anyway, and that kind of brings me to Jessica Biel's character again. I think her performance was amazing, but the character itself, she's basically dictating to the rest of the group what we should do here. And I think she has a little. If I were those other guys, I mean, like even her boyfriend, I'd be like, yeah, if you want to throw me in the doghouse for a couple of weeks, that's fine. But I'm out. I'm getting the f out of Dodge here, and She basically leads to the death of all her friends. I mean, let's just be honest about it. And so some of those cliches exist, and that's probably unavoidable. But the running and stopping crap just kind of does get to me. Bad choices by most of the characters, putting their lives at risk. Typical. This movie, and this is goes back to the dinner scene. I think the reason it's not there is because this is less of a disturbing cannibal movie like the original was, and more of a slasher movie. They went much more of a slasher, 2000 slasher movie, and less of a disturbing cannibal 70s horror movie like the original was. So that, I suppose they didn't probably feel the need to have that dinner scene in there as a result. I really missed it though, and that is one of the things I still enjoy more about the original is that that's why it was more disturbing to me because of the cannibalism involved and with the whole family. This movie, you have a family there, but it's all more of just support of Leatherface going around and carving people up with the chainsaw. And then there's also a few scenes when it comes to him attacking people. There's some choppy editing. Again, they probably did that on purpose for dramatic emphasis or something. I just didn't really like it. It was hard to see. Um, there's some other nitpicky things. They cut some of the kill scenes, and it was probably because to get an R rating, they couldn't show as much as they were originally going to. But some of the kills are cut short, where they're cutaway kills, where we don't see it on screen as much. But other than that, I'm not going to rip this movie too much, especially for a remake where there's so many of them that aren't very good. This is an excellent remake. It's probably the best one I've seen, although I haven't seen all the horror remakes yet. So I can't say for sure, but it's definitely, I'd be hard pressed to find one that's as good as effective as this one. And I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I think for what they were going for and the concept that they took and ran with it, I think they did an excellent job. And this is a movie that I can watch anytime, really. But as I said before, it really is a good summer horror movie to put on. So I would definitely recommend that. 8.5 out of 10. Go ahead and tell me what you guys think of the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Um, yeah, put your thoughts down below. Sorry, I was thinking to bring something else up and I kind of got lost in my own head there. But yeah, put your comments down below. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for this series. Got like 10 or 11 more movies to go through yet for the rest of the month. And please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content over the rest of the year and beyond. So, thank you for watching this video review. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy 4th of July to everybody if you're watching this on July 4th. And thank you for watching. Stay scared. Bye.